The biggest studios and top directors in Hollywood fought for the rights to bring this blockbuster to life, and the project took more than 2 years to complete. The effort paid off. The film showcased the astonishing potential of computer-generated imagery and practical effects, breathed new life into large-scale sci-fi adventures, and launched an incredibly successful media franchise that continues to evolve over 30 years later. Movies Inside Out presents Jurassic Park is a 1993 adventure sci-fi action film directed by Steven Spielberg, based on the novel of the same name by Michael Crichton. Why did the director turn down big-name stars for the lead roles? How did the adult cast treat the young actors? What accident nearly cost the entire team their lives? And why did Spielberg nearly lose his mind during post-production? We'll cover all that and more in our new video. Let's go! The creation story. The story of Jurassic Park began in the 1980s, when author Michael Crichton started developing a screenplay that later turned into the novel of the same name. Crichton wanted a film adaptation to be made as soon as possible, so even before the book was published, he put the rights up for sale for $1.5 million. Crichton delivered the finished manuscript to his publisher in May 1990, and that same month, Steven Spielberg learned about the novel. A lifelong dinosaur enthusiast, Spielberg read the book with great interest and agreed to take on the project.
You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
However, the literary agency that owned the rights to Crichton's novel wasn't in a hurry to sell them to Spielberg. Instead, it organized a bidding war between major Hollywood studios, each of which had their own preferred director. Warner Brothers offered Tim Burton, Columbia Pictures put forward Richard Donner, and 20th Century Fox proposed Joe Dante. Crichton discussed the project with all of them, but Spielberg remained the ideal candidate in the author's eyes. That same May 1990, 6 months before the novel was published, Universal Pictures, Spielberg's longtime studio partner, acquired the film rights. Interestingly, James Cameron was also interested in the project, but Spielberg beat him by just a few hours. In 2012, Cameron revealed that he had envisioned Jurassic Park as a darker, grittier film, something closer in tone to his own Aliens. But he admitted that Spielberg's more family-friendly version was also very effective.
I mean, what's so wrong with kids?
Oh, Ellie, look, they're noisy, they're messy, they're expensive.
Immediately after securing the rights, Spielberg brought in production designer Rick Carter, and within a few weeks, they had completed detailed storyboards. For the screenplay, Spielberg turned to Michael Crichton, offering him an additional $500,000 for the job. Crichton wasn't thrilled about the idea. He was already burned out on the Jurassic Park story by the time he finished the novel. Nevertheless, he agreed, but only to write a first draft and suggested that another writer handle the character development. According to Spielberg, he wanted to make Jurassic Park into a land-based successor to Jaws. He also drew inspiration from the 1933 King Kong, a benchmark for visual effects in its time, and Godzilla, King of the Monsters, 1956, a classic dinosaur film.
What do they got in there, King Kong?
It soon became clear that Jurassic Park would require much more time for development and special effects than Spielberg had originally anticipated. Not wanting to lose momentum, he directed Hook, which was released in 1991. Around that time, Crichton finished the rough draft of the script, and Hook co-writer Malia Scotch-Marmo suggested working on the final version. After releasing Hook, Spielberg wanted to immediately begin work on Schindler's List. However, studio executives insisted that he direct Jurassic Park first, so production resumed in January 1992. Malia Scotch-Marmo spent 5 months writing her version of the script, but Spielberg wasn't satisfied with it and began looking for a new writer. That writer turned out to be David Koepp. He chose to write his own version, and Spielberg gave him full creative freedom, with one condition: Two specific scenes had to be in the film: the T-Rex attack on the car and the kitchen sequence.
You said you've got a T-Rex?
Uh-huh. Say again. We have a T-Rex.
Interestingly, although Scotch Marmo contributed to numerous revisions of Koepp's script, her name was ultimately not included in the film's credits. Casting. The majority of Jurassic Park's $63 million budget was allocated to creating the dinosaurs, so Steven Spielberg aimed to cast talented but not overly famous actors. Kurt Russell and Richard Dreyfuss were considered for the role of Alan Grant, but both demanded salaries that were too high.
Compensate you by fully funding your dig.
For a further 3 years.
The role was then offered to William Hurt, Harrison Ford, and Tim Robbins, all of whom declined. Ultimately, the part went to Sam Neill, who was Spielberg's top choice. Even though Neill hadn't read or even heard of Crichton's novel. In fact, Spielberg had to delay the start of filming by an entire month due to Neill's scheduling conflicts. The role of Ellie Sattler was offered to Robin Wright and Juliette Binoche, who both turned it down. Spielberg then considered Sandra Bullock, Gwyneth Paltrow, Helen Hunt, Julianne Moore, and Laura Dern. He ultimately chose Dern after seeing her performance in Rambling Rose. Interestingly, Moore would go on to play a lead role in the sequel.
Dr. Hammond, I think we're back in business.
For the role of chaos theorist Ian Malcolm, casting director Janet Hershenson immediately suggested Jeff Goldblum.
God creates dinosaurs. God destroys dinosaurs. God creates man. Man destroys God. Man creates dinosaurs.
Other actors who auditioned included Michael Keaton, Johnny Depp, Steve Guttenberg, and Jim Carrey, but the team felt Goldblum was the best fit. Thanks to Hershenson, Samuel L. Jackson was also cast in the film as engineer Ray Arnold.
Hold on to your butts.
She had been tipped off by Whoopi Goldberg, who praised Jackson's performance in Jungle Fever, 1991, and Spielberg was likewise impressed. Richard Attenborough agreed to play John Hammond only after Spielberg personally urged him to. The actor was initially hesitant, having not appeared in a film for 14 years, but Spielberg insisted that no one else could bring the character to life.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Ariana Richards, who landed the role of Lex Murphy, recalled that during her audition, she was asked to scream wildly on camera. The request surprised the 12-year-old actress, but she later learned that Spielberg had asked the same of all the candidates, including Christina Ricci. Richards was the only one who screamed loudly enough to wake Spielberg's wife, who was napping in the next room and ran into the office in a panic, thinking something terrible had happened. The role of Tim Murphy nearly went to a young Jake Gyllenhaal, but it ultimately went to 8-year-old Joseph Mazzello. He had previously auditioned for a part in Hook, but Spielberg felt he was too young at the time and promised to cast him in another film. Jurassic Park became that film.
What do you call a blind dinosaur's dog?
You got me.
Or do you think he saw his Rex?
To cast those particular children, Spielberg had to deviate from the source material. In the novel, Tim is the older sibling, not Lex. Another actor from Hook was Cameron Thor, who was initially considered for Malcolm, but was ultimately cast as Dodgson.
Dodgson! Dodgson! We've got Dodgson here! See, nobody cares.
Donald Gennaro, the lawyer, was played by Martin Ferrero.
We're gonna make a fortune with this place.
Geneticist Henry Wu was portrayed by B.D. Wong.
You're implying that a group composed entirely of female animals will breed?
No,
And Dennis Nedry was played by Wayne Knight, who had impressed Spielberg with his performance in Basic Instinct. Interestingly, Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, and Richard Attenborough were all cast late in pre-production and had only a few weeks to prepare for their roles. The filming process.
I own an island off the coast of Costa Rica.
The fictional Isla Nublar, according to the story, is located near Costa Rica, which was initially considered as the main filming location. However, as the rainy season was just beginning there, the crew had to look elsewhere. Spielberg first selected Puerto Rico, but ultimately chose Hawaii as the most comfortable location with quality hotels and services. Construction of the sets began in June 1992, 3 months before filming, and the full preparation process, from sketches to set building, took 25 months. Filming on Jurassic Park officially began on August 24, 1992, in Olakala Canyon. That's where 23-foot fences were built to serve as the T-Rex paddock perimeter. The longest section of fencing was over 200 feet long. Though simple in design, installation was difficult due to the canyon's tricky terrain. Other locations included the island of Kauai, where daytime exterior scenes were filmed.
So you two, dig up dinosaurs?
Well,
Trying to.
The scenes of arrival at Isla Nublar by helicopter were shot at Manawaiopuna Falls and Keopuka Rock, which later became known as Jurassic Falls and Jurassic Rock. On September 11th, the last day of filming on Kauai, Hurricane Iniki hit the island. The film crew was able to seek shelter in time, and Spielberg even captured unique footage that made it into the film. The storm damaged much of the landscape, so the final scene was filmed on the island of Oahu. The vehicles for the park were provided by Ford Motor Company, and their design was created by artist John Bell. Staying true to the book, which featured autonomous vehicles, the effects team at Industrial Light and Magic modified the cars so they could be driven by hidden drivers in the trunk, who navigated using front-facing cameras. On September 15th, production resumed at Universal Studios in California, then moved to Red Rock Canyon, which served as Grant's dig site. Paleontologist Jack Horner was hired as a consultant to ensure the excavation scenes appeared authentic. Still, many paleontologists later criticized the scene as overly simplified and unrealistic. One of the most technically complex scenes was the shot of the car falling through the treetops.
We're back in the car again.
For this, a 50-foot steel tree was constructed. The car was hoisted up and dropped repeatedly to capture the fall from different angles. Spielberg wanted the tree to appear even taller, so the background was carefully decorated to create that illusion. Universal Studios didn't have a soundstage large enough to shoot the T-Rex breakout scene, so in late October, the team moved to a Warner Brothers soundstage. Rain machines and real mud were brought in, along with a life-size animatronic T-Rex, about 20 feet tall and 40 feet long. Not surprisingly, this came with its share of problems. During filming, the dinosaur model began to shake uncontrollably. It had absorbed too much rainwater into its foam skin, so assistants had to continuously dry it with towels and hair dryers. The famous shot of water rippling in a cup, triggered by the T-Rex's footsteps, was inspired by a bass rhythm in a song by Earth, Wind, and Fire. Special effects supervisor Michael Lantieri didn't know how to replicate the effect until he placed a glass of water on a guitar and plucked a string, creating the desired ripple. Wires were eventually mounted inside the car, and an assistant lying on the floor plucked the strings for each take. The Triceratops' dung was made from clay, mud, and straw. To attract flies, it was coated with honey and papaya juice.
You will remember to wash your hands before you eat anything.
In the scene where Lex eats Jell-O, a crew member held Ariana Richards by the elbow and shook her arm to emphasize her character's fear. Richards wanted to act it out herself, but Spielberg felt she wouldn't be able to make it convincing enough. According to the script, Malcolm, like Gennaro, was supposed to run away from the T-Rex in fear. But Jeff Goldblum proposed an alternative, more heroic take, which allowed Grant to save the children. Clearly, Goldblum was inspired by Spielberg, who, according to the actor, constantly generated creative ideas and energized the whole crew. Filming wasn't without minor injuries. While shooting the scene where Grant lights a flare to distract the T-Rex, Sam Neill burned his wrist with splashing phosphorus. During the kitchen scene, Joseph Mazzello accidentally collided with a dinosaur prop and fell, hitting his head hard. Coincidentally, this happened on his 9th birthday, and while he lay on the floor recovering, Spielberg and the entire crew surprised him with birthday wishes. Mazzello recalled that all the adult actors were warm and friendly to him and Ariana Richards, though they never treated them with condescension. Jeff Goldblum, in particular, spent a lot of time with the kids, entertaining them with funny antics between takes. The dinosaurs in Jurassic Park were created using a mix of animatronics and groundbreaking computer graphics. Spielberg aimed to use practical models as much as possible and avoided stop-motion animation, which had been the standard in previous dinosaur films. Stop motion involves slightly moving static models between frames to simulate movement. Most of the practical and digital effects were handled by Industrial Light and Magic, and life-size dinosaur models were created by artist Stan Winston, best known for designing the Alien Queen in Aliens. Notably, Winston and ILM also worked on Terminator 2. Videos about both films are already available on our channel, and if you haven't seen them yet, we highly recommend checking them out. Stan Winston's team was divided into two groups, one focused on the visual design of the dinosaurs, the other on mechanical functionality. The dinosaurs were essentially robotic puppets with foam and latex skin. Most of the controls were hidden under special platforms.
Are those meat-eating metosauruses?
In large-scale scenes involving Gallimimus herds, simpler puppets were initially planned, modeled after Winston's creations. But inspired by the revolutionary effects in Terminator 2, Spielberg decided to have ILM create those wide shots using CGI. All CGI work on the dinosaurs, including virtual skeletons and motion animation, took nearly a year. In total, Jurassic Park featured more than 50 CGI shots. Rendering a single frame took 2 to 4 hours, and the rain-soaked T-Rex scene required about 6 hours per frame. Out of the film's 127-minute runtime, only 15 minutes featured dinosaurs, 9 minutes with animatronic models, and 6 minutes with digital effects. All full body shots of dinosaurs were CGI, while close-ups of body parts used animatronics. Interestingly, CGI was also used in the scene where Lex nearly falls through the ceiling. Instead of Ariana Richards, a stuntwoman was used, and her face was digitally replaced with the actress's. Editing for Jurassic Park began during filming. Once production wrapped, Spielberg left post-production oversight to his producers, while he traveled to Poland to work on Schindler's List. He monitored Jurassic Park remotely via video calls. The director described the experience of working on two vastly different films simultaneously as bipolar. After finishing Schindler's List, Spielberg took a rare creative break and didn't direct another film for 4 years. In addition to groundbreaking visual effects, Spielberg wanted Jurassic Park to have top-tier digital sound. To achieve this, he funded the development of DTS, Digital Theater Systems, which allowed audiences to hear even the subtlest sounds. By the way, the roar of the T-Rex was a mix of tiger, alligator, whale, and baby elephant sounds, while the Brachiosaur's calls were made from whale, donkey, and penguin noises. During T-Rex scenes, Spielberg would sometimes mimic dinosaur roars through a megaphone. Which made the actors laugh and struggle to stay serious in the scene. The entire production of Jurassic Park wrapped on May 28, 1993. Amazingly, the film stayed within its $63 million budget and finished 12 days ahead of schedule. Spielberg gave each cast and crew member a dinosaur model with his autograph. Despite its intimidating appearance, the cast and crew still treasure this gift and keep it proudly in their homes. Movie mistakes and errors. No film is free from major errors or minor goofs, and Jurassic Park is no exception. While these slip-ups don't affect the overall experience, let's take a look at some of the most notable ones. Miraculous luck. It's quite surprising that the paleontologists uncover a perfectly intact dinosaur skeleton, considering that real fossils are pieced together bone by bone. And in reality, they would be buried under hardened soil, not just soft sand that can be brushed away effortlessly. The magical trailer. In different camera angles, the door hinges of the trailer switch sides from right to left. Also, the trailer's interior contains an improbable amount of furniture, given how compact it appears from the outside. Scientists in need of a refresher. No dinosaur blood could actually be recovered from mosquitoes in amber, because Dominican amber formed millions of years after dinosaurs went extinct. Moreover, the insect shown is a cranefly, which feeds on nectar, not blood. It's also unclear how frog DNA could be helpful, since dinosaurs are more closely related to birds than to reptiles.
Look at the vertebrae, full of air sacs and hollows, just like a bird. And even the word raptor means bird of prey.
Spelling trouble. The word Tyrannosaurus is misspelled with a single N, and Stegosaurus is incorrectly spelled using an A. Teleporting props. The goat leg that falls onto the car roof disappears for a moment, then mysteriously reappears in the same spot. Also, it looks neatly severed, rather than bitten off by a predator. A cliff appears near the T-Rex paddock that wasn't there earlier. A signpost that was pointing upward suddenly flips sideways. The car gets stuck in a tree located near the paddock wall. Yet later, the wall is nowhere to be seen. Eggshells resting on dark soil suddenly appear on light-colored sand. Gallimimus dinosaurs outrun the heroes, but when the camera angle changes, no one is ahead of them. In a close-up, Grant is standing by the fence, ready to catch Tim, but in the wide shot, he's several feet away from it. Time loops. The T-Rex walks between the cars in the same direction, twice. Ellie also leaps over the same log twice on her way to the control room. Time travel in the title. Despite being called Jurassic Park, most of the featured dinosaurs, like velociraptors, triceratops, gallimimus, and Tyrannosaurus rex, actually lived during the Cretaceous period. When asked why a Cretaceous dinosaur appeared on the cover of his book, Michael Crichton replied that he hadn't thought about it. He just liked the design. These are the errors we noticed in Jurassic Park. What inaccuracies stood out to you? Share them in the comments. Deleted scenes and behind the scenes of the film. The original cut of Jurassic Park included extended versions of several scenes. For instance, previously unseen footage and dialogue existed during the excavation sequence. Then, based on behind-the-scenes photos and a suspicious cut, a kiss between Ellie and Grant was removed from the final version. In the scene following the tour, you can spot Grant being the first to rush to the lab door. Other deleted fragments include a conversation between Ellie and Malcolm while Grant is holding the newly hatched dinosaur. There was also a scene that gave a more detailed explanation of why Hammond's grandchildren were on the island. Interestingly, a baby Triceratops was meant to appear in the film. It showed up in early storyboards and was even built as a full animatronic, but for unknown reasons, the creators decided to scrap the scene. However, these deleted scenes were never officially released as a compilation, and it's possible that the filmmakers are hiding even more unseen material. Luckily, there's plenty of behind-the-scenes content available to the public, so let's enjoy some of the most fascinating and funny moments from the Jurassic Park sets.
That's a true story. I love this guy.
Yeah!
Cut. Good. Perfect. Excellent.
My dear,
T-Rex.
welcome to Jurassic Park.
And cut. Very good.
Worldwide recognition. Even during pre-production, Universal began planning a massive marketing campaign for Jurassic Park, allocating around $65 million, $2 million more than the film's entire production budget. The studio signed dozens of contracts with companies to create and promote a wide range of products, including several video games, toy lines, and novelizations for younger readers. Universal promoted the film as an unconventional blockbuster without movie stars, which, according to Sam Neill, irritated the cast. No one liked feeling like a second-tier celebrity. The premiere of Jurassic Park took place on June 9, 1993, in Washington, D.C. The next day, it opened wide in U.S. theaters, and between late June and October, it was released in most countries worldwide. To support the release, a traveling exhibit titled Jurassic Park Dinosaurs was launched, showcasing dinosaur skeletons and film props. The film made a strong start, earning $50 million in its opening weekend. It held the #1 spot for 3 weeks and ultimately grossed $357 million in the US and Canada, becoming the second highest grossing film at the time, behind E.T., also directed by Spielberg. Internationally, Jurassic Park broke records as well, topping the box office in the UK, Germany, Spain, Israel, and other countries. It earned $555 million abroad, surpassing E.T.'s international total of $280 million. In the end, the film grossed $912 million worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing movie of all time. That record stood until 1998, when Titanic crossed the $1 billion mark. According to some sources, Jurassic Park earned Steven Spielberg more than $250 million, a staggering fee for a single film at the time. The movie was re-released multiple times, in digital format in 2011 and in 3D in 2013. Critics also received Jurassic Park warmly. They praised it for its thrilling and terrifying sequences, realistic special effects, and groundbreaking animatronics, calling it one of the greatest blockbusters ever made, though some noted weak characters and a clumsy plot. The film was honored by major awards. It won all 3 Oscars it was nominated for: Best Sound, Best Sound Editing, and Best Visual Effects. The British Academy awarded it Best Visual Effects, and the Saturn Awards named it Best Science Fiction Film of the Year, while also recognizing its directing, writing, and effects. However, the nominated composer, costume designer, and lead actors lost in their categories. In the years that followed, critics repeatedly included Jurassic Park in rankings of the greatest and most influential films ever made. In 2018, it was preserved in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. The film had a tremendous impact on cinema, setting new standards for visual effects, and paving the way for technically ambitious sci-fi films like The Lord of the Rings, King Kong, Godzilla, and the Star Wars prequels. It also sparked public fascination with dinosaurs, leading to increased funding for paleontology, which contributed to numerous scientific discoveries. Interestingly, Ariana Richards became so inspired by dinosaurs that the summer after filming, she helped paleontologist Jack Horner with excavations in Montana. The story of humans versus dinosaurs continues to inspire comics, video games, and theme park attractions.
This park was not built to cater only for the super rich.
Everyone in the world has the right to enjoy these animals.
Jurassic Park also positively affected the careers of its main cast. They continued landing notable film and TV roles, and Laura Dern went on to win numerous awards, including an Oscar. By the way, Dern and Jeff Goldblum began dating during filming, but they split 4 years later. Joseph Mazzello occasionally appears in films, while Ariana Richards chose to pursue a career in painting. Richard Attenborough returned to acting and directed several more films before passing away in 2014 from complications following a stroke, just days before his 91st birthday. Naturally, Jurassic Park launched a popular media franchise. After the film's success, Michael Crichton wrote a sequel novel, The Lost World, which Spielberg and David Koepp adapted into The Lost World, Jurassic Park in 1997. Though no further books followed, Jurassic Park 3 was released in 2001, directed by Joe Johnston. Both sequels were box office successes, but were received more coolly by critics and audiences. 14 years later, the franchise was rebooted with Jurassic World, which grossed over $1.6 billion. It was followed by Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom in 2018 and Jurassic World Dominion in 2022, both of which also crossed the $1 billion mark. A new film, subtitled Rebirth, is scheduled to premiere in July 2025, starring Scarlett Johansson. Despite the commercial success of these sequels, only the first Jurassic Park achieved true classic status and remains a landmark in cinema history. Does Jurassic Park rank among your favorite blockbusters?